Hey everybody, this is the update from Washington the past week here. A couple big things happened. First of all, I want to just talk about the budget deal and the caps deal. Many people say, well, what is a caps deal? We have a budget, we have a cap on how much we can spend, discretionary and military. So discretionary is things like the IRS, the Department of Interior, Parks, a whole host of other federal agencies and spending that is aside from Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Those are automatic program spending, and these are the two things that we generally budget for, which is the military and all other federal government spending. So there's a cap on that, and that came out of the 2011 Budget Control Act, and what it was trying to do was rein in our spending, because we're spending just too much money, right? We're $22 trillion and counting in debt. And so we limit ourselves with these caps that we vote on, and then we stay within those. Well, what we did this week was we said, forget the caps. We're done with those. We also blew right through the debt ceiling. So what we do on a regular basis is we spend the money, and it goes above what we set for a ceiling of spending. That's called the debt ceiling. And so Congress has to vote to increase the debt limit or the debt ceiling. And so that was put together with a budget deal, because we haven't voted on a budget yet under Speaker Pelosi. And this is what we said we were going to do on discretionary and non-discretionary. That's military and then the other. This is like getting a new credit card. And we asked for no limit on the credit card. So there's no spending limit at all for the next 2 years. So that I don't think that's a good sign. We also increased the budget a whole bunch, 4% across the board federally, 4%. So whether an agency did well or whether employees did well or completed their mission, they're getting a 4% increase just across the board. And the way they put in the language to pay for this was that they were going to take a quarter of this amount of money that was spent and then repay it back. Only that doesn't happen until year 8 and year 9. I'm just going to tell you what's going to happen in year 8 and year 9. Nothing. This money's never going to be paid back.
Year 8 and 9 of what?
So of this budget deal, it's a 10. They do budget years. They go out like 10 years.
Okay.
So they said you're spending $321 billion additional dollars on top of what you're already spending, but we can't spend that much money because we don't have it. We got to pay it back somehow. So how are we going to pay it back? So they find some pay for, and they say, this is how we're paying it back. So we need you to vote for this because it's fiscally responsible. We're going to spend here, but we're going to pay here. But the spending happens today. The payback happens in year 8 and year 9, which never comes, right? So that's what we did. I voted no on that.
So what about the people that say the debt limit doesn't matter because we're never going to pay it back anyway? Who cares?
Well, just think about this. When you have a mortgage, and let's say that you mortgaged more than you could afford, and you have trouble paying for it, and essentially at some point you just stop paying anything, what's going to happen? The bank's going to foreclose on your loan and come take your house back.
Well, who's foreclosing on our loan?
Countries like China, and quite honestly, when we take money from the Social Security Trust Fund, the interest raised on that to pay for our debt, that means that Social Security recipients that are depending upon that, it won't be there, right? So it collapses. I don't know when it happens. We're $22 trillion. No one's ever gone this far before, so I don't know when it happens.
Is that happening?
Is what happening?
That we're taking money from Social Security?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
Ugh.
You don't have to take my word for it. Just check with the trustees. So that's an explanation about budget caps, the debt limit, and what's called the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2019, a 4% boost in spending, which there's no pay for the first 8 years. So Washington has a spending problem, not a revenue problem. I just want to make this clear. Due to the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, increase in federal revenues is up 3%. So we're taking in more money than we ever had before in the form of taxes. That's revenue. Unfortunately, we're spending more than we ever had. Revenues are up 3%. Spending is up 7%. Those are never going to meet. We're never going to catch up to our spending as long as we're spending double what we're taking in. And that's what we voted on this week, and I voted no. Former Special Counsel Robert Muller was in to testify this week before two committees. One was the Judiciary Committee. One was the Intelligence Committee. I don't know if you saw any of it, but if you did, it seemed pretty apparent, at least this is my opinion, that that Mr. Muller did not write the report, when he kept on saying, well, if that's what the report says, I agree to it. And when he doesn't know simple things like Fusion GPS, it concerns me about how the investigation was conducted. That having been said, we spent over $25 million doing the special counsel, I think like 3,800 subpoenas, 500 different witness interviews, a whole cadre of attorneys to determine what the report put out. But the House of Representatives under Speaker Pelosi doesn't believe it, so we're just going to continue to investigate it. Meanwhile, we got big problems that we've got to get to, like this crisis at our border where illegal foreign nationals just keep pouring across the border. That would be handled in the Judiciary Committee, but they're not doing it because they are continuing to prosecute, so to speak, the president using the Robert Mueller report. Another piece of legislation that got moved through this week was the bailout for the pension plans. These are called the Multi-Employer Pension. This is called the Rehabilitation for Multi-Employer Pension Act. It passed 264 in support to 169 opposed. I was opposed to it. Simply, this is the reason. When you have a job and there's a pension, you pay dues, and the employer might match it or not, but you're paying into your pension, and you expect when you retire to get your pension back. The pensions are going insolvent, so they can't pay their bills. What happened under this bill is we decided that the taxpayers are going to pay the bill. What's even worse than that is they give the pension plans 30 years to pay the bill back that the taxpayers are going to pay for, and if they can't pay for it, well, they're just going to absolve the debt. That's right in the legislation. So what incentive do they really have to be good stewards with the taxpayers' monies after they haven't been good stewards with their own employees' money? How is this fair? I mean, there's a lot of people in the district, in our district, and across the country that don't have a 401k or don't have a pension. Yet, under force of law, they're going to be forced to pay for other people's pensions when they don't even have one themselves. I think it's ridiculous. I think that there was a better way to do this. But they didn't offer that. We're talking billions of dollars, folks, just down the rat hole, a little more. So I voted no on that. I did introduce one new bill and reintroduce another one. The first bill was the Protecting Academic Integrity Act. I don't know whether you know this or not, but many institutions of higher learning accept gifts from foreign governments. You can just figure out who they might be that want to influence education and higher education in America. Currently, the law requires these higher institutions of learning to report anything over $250,000. And it's just recently been reported that many institutions have just been violated for not reporting these things. So when a country, let's say China or Saudi Arabia, gives a gift to an institution of $250,000 or more, do you think they're just giving them a gift for that? They want something in return, and that's why the federal government wants to know when those gifts are forthcoming. In the instance of China, they oftentimes like to set up what's called a Confucius Institute. As a matter of fact, according to a Senate report, 70% of U.S. schools that receive more than $250,000 from the Chinese government are to establish things called Confucius Institutes. There are 82 Confucius Institutes at American universities. These institutes are to teach American students about China. But it's Chinese propaganda. They leave out things like the Tiananmen Square issue. They just leave that like that never happened. And so it's concerning that they're indoctrinating American students this way. So my bill does a couple things. I think the most important thing is it reduces that threshold from $250,000 to $50,000. We want to know anytime foreign governments are giving gifts to American universities, because we want to take a look at that from a national security standpoint and make sure they're not doing the wrong thing, unwittingly or otherwise. And then finally, I reintroduced the drone coordinator bill. Believe it or not, there is nobody at the Department of Homeland Security that deals with the coordination of our defenses regarding the use of unmanned aerial systems. And so what we don't want, I introduced this in previous sessions, is some horrific thing to happen, a terrorist attack or whatever, using unmanned aerial systems, and then we go to Homeland Security and say, how did this happen? And they say this, well, it was somebody else's job. We want somebody at the top of this monitoring this and a point of contact that is responsible for the initiatives of the United States regarding unmanned aerial surveillance and systems, and the use of them by terrorist organizations and otherwise. So that's kind of what happened for the week. If you didn't know it, August is the long district work period for members of Congress. So members of Congress go back to their district for the month of August for an extended stay with their constituents to hear from them and catch up on their business right there in their districts. It's also a time when many congressional delegations, called a CODEL, goes overseas, maybe to Israel or Afghanistan or where we have interest for the United States. And so a lot of those things will happen in the month of August. I tell you that for multiple reasons, not the least of which is that this is a weekly update, and so there should be no legislative business for the month of August. So you probably won't hear from me for a little while with a weekly Washington update, because we aren't in Washington, D.C. It's not that I'm not out there working in the district or what have you. There's just not legislation happening from D.C. So I hope the rest of your summer is great, and I hope you're safe and well. Until I see you next time, God bless you.